This segment is for people who are interested in what happens after death, perhaps are afraid, or perhaps had a close brush with death, like myself, a few times anyway. And I spoke about it at one point in one of my videos prior to this one. Anyway, hi there. My name is Ellen. Thank you for joining and tuning into my channel. Today, I'm going to talk about an experience I had some time ago. It was end of July, many years ago. But I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and she was talking about a relative and how fearful she was to, to die. Not directly speaking to it, but she could tell that she was worried about what's next. So I thought perhaps this might be of interest to all of you out there who are wondering what's next. So, like I said, I had an experience with some teenagers who had been in a plane and they had a plane crash. Anyway, on that day, it was end of July. I think it was the 27th, 28th of July, many years ago, 97, 98. I believe it was 97. And I had just come back from work and I was in the process of parking my car when I still had some groceries in the car that I needed to get out. So I opened up my trunk. And as I was fiddling around with things in the car, I I saw this car that was going by, going. I was parked this way, and the car was going this way, and slowly, very slowly, it even came to a full stop, right, kind of in front of me, and they had the music blasting, and I looked and I saw our neighbor kid, who was at that time he was 17, and he was the passenger, and I didn't recognize the driver of the car. And then there was a young gal with long black hair who was sitting in the back seat, and they were just rocking it. They were just having a ball, laughing, what have you. And so the boy that I knew, I don't want to call out his name. Let's just call him Jay. Jay. He looked at me and I saw him and I was grabbing one bag and I had my right hand free and I was kind of waving at him. I'm like, hi. And he was just looking at me like in complete shock. It's like he, like he just, yeah, he was in shock and he kind of lifted his hand a little bit and then he was yelling at driver just to say, go, go, go. And they were just frantic at that point and stepped on the gas, music still blasting, and then continuing on the way. And I parked my car, shrugged my shoulders, got the rest of the groceries, and looked up to my unit, which was on the third floor. And I saw my son coming down the stairs. He was 9 at that time. And he came down and tried to, approach me and then try to help me. And he said, Mom, did you hear what happened? Did you hear what happened? I'm like, sweetie, I have no idea. I had a long day at work. Hi, how are you? And then he was telling me what had happened. And I told him, I said, look, let's just go upstairs for a minute, okay? And help me with the groceries, and then we go from there. And so we took all the groceries upstairs, and I went into my home, and I saw my daughter, who was at that time I believe she was 18, and she was just sitting there crying. And so I said, okay, so tell me what is going on. And so they told me that Jay, I call him Jay, and a gal from high school who was the same age as he was, and a young a young man who was still a teenager, he was what 19. They had a plane crash, and they had been just not far away from here, had gone, had pinpointedly had crashed in a small airplane that afternoon, early afternoon. And I said, but that can't be. I was like, I just saw them, And I said, what did the girl look like? And so my daughter explained, so and so. I said, was she perhaps Asian? And they said, yeah, yeah. I said, well, I saw her, and I saw the two boys up front. There's just no way. There's got to be a mix-up. I was just really baffled. I didn't know. I couldn't understand how I could possibly see people who had who had passed away, and there was no blood, no nothing. They looked just like regular teenagers, no bandages, no blood, no nothing, no broken bones. They were just like you and I, regular, people who were in excellent health. Loud and noisy like teenagers are, blasting music, having a good time. And but I remember the young man, Jay, who before he saw me, he kept looking up, up towards our neighbors because that's where he lived. Um, he actually was a neighbor of ours on the same level, also third floor, but right across in another building. So we could see them going up and down. And then I looked out of the window and I noticed people taking trays up with, I'm guessing, food. There was tinfoil, covering dishes. And so it just sunk in. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I actually witnessed people who had passed on. And I was wondering how many times has this happened? And I've seen dead people, but not realizing that they were actually already had crossed over. Um, so, the thing is, later on, I found out that they had been in a plane, in a small plane, and the young man had just gotten his license like a year prior, and it was okay for him having passengers, and apparently those two kids that he took, the passengers that he took on, um, they had flown over the apartment building trying to wave to the younger brother of Jay. And there was some conversation on the cell phone. I guess at some point later on they talked about all the details. What I found most interesting was that the young gal, she actually, at that time when I saw her, she was in a coma. Either she must have been in a coma at 7 o'clock or they were still doing surgery on her. But she was also in the car along with the two young men who already had passed on. So anyway, I know this is a difficult conversation, but I'm hoping that people who are seeing this video, uh, kind of can try to wrap their head around that there is something that happens after we pass on. I know for myself since then, I've lost several family members, and some that I were very close to have passed on. And these days, I sense the energy, but I do not recall actually seeing dead people, so to speak, or people who have passed over. What I found interesting was, like I said, the girl was in a coma and she was in the car, looked healthy and bouncy and just laughing, and they just had a blast. And looking back, I am very grateful for the fact that they truly enjoyed themselves. They were at peace. They were happy. They were partying, like teenagers are supposed to have fun, right? And that put me at ease even after the fact that I lost more people years later. I was sad, obviously, for missing them in a physical way, but I now know that there is such thing as perhaps a window of where they are revisiting, loved ones, people that they want to say goodbye to kind of do one more visit, so to speak, a goodbye perhaps. And I think that if we pay really close attention, that when someone passes away that you care deeply about, that you will find signs, so to speak, of their presence. Maybe you can even feel it at times. I know I do. But I'm sure that, often we are so engulfed in our grief that we might not pay attention to it. I have often thought about approaching the family, days and weeks later to tell them that their son was at peace. Every time I wanted to go, they just seemed so grief-ridden that I just didn't think it was the right time. And since then, I have been thinking about it many times. I just don't know where they live anymore. I mean, I've moved so many times since then. I can probably do a little detective work and find out. I just don't know if it's going to bring them peace. Perhaps maybe you want to leave maybe leave a comment and advise me on what I should do. I have often thought about maybe, you know, flying up there and rent a car and find the parents and hopefully give them some feedback, some peace. I don't know if there's such thing after such a long time, but truly for most parents, I'm thinking, when you lose a child, you never really get over that. I doubt it very much. I am lucky not ever having to go through that. So, for all the parents who never had to go through losing a child, wonderful, right? What a blessing. But for all the others, I'm thinking, like I said, if you are afraid of passing on and wondering what's afterwards, I was very struck by how relaxed they all were. They were just so happy and so content, and they looked like they had no care in the world. And isn't that a way to look at someone who has passed over? The sad news is that the girl who was sitting in the back of the plane was also sitting in the back of the car. So it was exactly the way they sat in the car. Later on, when the Oregonian was writing about it, they were actually in the exact position in the car like they were in the plane, which I thought was amazing. Just, that I saw them just the way they were seated. But like I said, no injuries at all. And the girl apparently, sadly, she passed on for good at the end of August. So she hung on to life for about a month, and then she also died. So she never woke up again. But she seemed to have a really good time with her two friends while they were still cruising around on Earth, so to speak, saying their goodbyes. And I'm hoping that it will give all of you some kind of hope that there is something afterwards, that it isn't just that someone pulls the plug and that's it. I think spirit moves on, and I was just, I guess, the lucky one to actually have witnessed these three teenagers just having a blast after their plane had crashed. And anyway, I know this subject is obviously a little bit dark, but I'm thinking hopefully it will light up someone's view on looking at what's next for all of us eventually. And I'm hoping that I will help someone out there who is wondering and is afraid perhaps to put you more at peace. And if you're still on, please like and share my video. I'm still a beginner here, and subscriptions at YouTube is always free. So I'm going to let you go with all of this, and I'm hoping that this will give you some kind of lifeline to the next chapter, to where you perhaps can comprehend a little bit more about what could possibly be next. So anyway, you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you another time. I thank you for tuning in. Okay, bye-bye.